Let's get one thing perfectly straight. There is no club that I despise more than North Melbourne. Now, I may hate Carlton and I may hate the Brisbane Lions, but I have such unbridled and irrational hatred for North Melbourne. I hate the fact that because they didn't move north, I now have two expansion teams that are going to win 6 of the next 8 premierships. I hate the fact that they take money from us. I hate the fact that they complain about us not wearing a clash jumper. More importantly, I hate their shin boner spirit, or what the hell they call it. I couldn't care less about them as a club because despite the fact they were the most successful club in the 90s, they managed to do jack all with it. Hi, I'm the Mighty T, and if you haven't worked it out, I'm not a fan of our opponent this week, but let's see if GC's actually picked that up. GC, how are you tonight?
I'm just sort of staggering around in the background after that onslaught. I thought, poor old North. I don't mind them that much. They're one of my teams I quite like. I can't come at anyone. No, I can come at you, Mighty T, but I don't hate them as much as I hate Carlton. Sorry, that didn't compute with me.
Well, look, maybe I've gone a little bit over the top, but I tell you what, I've had some shockers for mates that have been North Melbourne supporters in the past. So I guess that kind of fuels the fire. But
if I ever introduced to my Carlton mates, they'd make your mates look like good blokes.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. All my Carlton mates have grown up in a time where Carlton have been largely irrelevant. So they're very quiet.
You don't know the real thing then.
No, I don't. Definitely not. Hey, good win on the weekend. Nice to get back on the winners list with a 70-point win.
Yeah, it was I think the quintessential solid win against an undermanned opposition. You go out there and you do exactly what you have to do. The players that you hope will play well mostly did, and we did the needful, but it was just as expected, I think.
Anything in particular stand out?
I thought Marley Williams just continued. I think Marley Williams, we underestimate what that effect of last year of missing the start of the season, the court case and all that sort of thing had on his, because before that, 2013, especially the latter half of 2013, he was looking pretty special. And he started 2014, those few practice games. He went into the midfield a little bit, and I thought, this guy looks really good. And he struggled when he came back, and he has only just entered this start of the season. But I think he's really looking good. He was out of all the guys. I think he's starting to step up.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get a chance to speak last week because I was absent from the podcast. But I thought his last couple of weeks actually have been quite good. Mm-hmm. He's going to be a very solid contributor, and I think with that almost A grade potential. I don't know if he'll get there, given his role and all that, but he's got something, and he's starting to clean up his disposal a bit, certainly from the first few rounds. So all positive signs.
Yeah, he's got 2 A grade attributes. He's got an A grade sidestep, and he's got an A grade ability to win the ball 1-on-1.
Mm.
And if you can clean a few of the other things up, they're 2 very good traits to have, I think. Speaking
of A grade qualities, Adam Oxley has been a bit of a revelation this year because he's. I think there was raps on him over the preseason, and he's really just taken. I mean, he was a bit of a so-so player to me in the VFL, but he's certainly come out and shown people what he's made of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's an interesting one because his first season, he came into club as a rookie. He got a game, and you thought, and then his whole second season was a wipe-off. So you almost said, I said, look, he's going to need a year to re-establish himself, and he's in round 1, and you've almost sort of discounted that because he stepped in and started playing straight away. That you said, well, he's just a good player now without having done an apprenticeship almost. So he's been very solid. I mean, I think we're underestimating how good a job he's done, probably.
Mm. Can I say in the last 2 weeks I've been very impressed with Travis Cloke. I've actually liked the game he's played. It hasn't been the stuff that we're used to, the scraggling, the wrestling, and the sitting in the goal square. I like that he's getting on his bike a bit, and another 7 marks on the weekend. Only the 1 goal, but I think that's a better game for him overall.
Yeah, because it opens up the rest of the forward. It certainly means that the rest of the forward line is functioning better. And I think Fasolo comes back and kicks his 3. Jamie Ellett kicks his 5, and Jesse, Jesse White's been good the last 2 weeks. Even though he's bad at times during the match, he's been good overall. And the 4 goals he kicked, I mean, he was playing on a midget really for him, but the forward line looks good, doesn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. The thing is, it's functioning okay. I think, and as we say, it's functioning a bit better when Travis actually moves to the forward 50, and that space does open up. You touched on Elliott there, and I want to go back to him for a second because he signs his new contract, and we're all very happy, and he's going to be a great player for the club. But his low possession count is something that does worry me because it means he has to maximise each opportunity he has, and 9 touches or 10 touches, whatever he had against Gold Coast. Yeah, the 5 goals were good, very opportunistic. Would you want to see him getting more of the ball, given how much of a good ball user he is and how damaging he can be?
Oh, well, undoubtedly, I think that's that's the nail on the head. Really, that's where his improvement's going to come because he's got the skill set and he can kick goals. If he can learn to get more of the ball and be more involved, he's going to be A grade and he's going to be All Australian in the future if he can do that.
Absolutely. I think the biggest disappointment for me over the weekend, obviously, wasn't from an actual game perspective. I hate VFL buys because it means that now Ben Reid's got to come back this week in the VFL, and it puts him back a week. It puts Scharenberg's development back a week. Maynard gets a good run on, gets back a week. But
Ben Kennedy doesn't get the chance this week to say, pick me this week because he hasn't played last week.
That's right, and the thing is, Marsh flew up to the Gold Coast. If Marsh doesn't play this week, it's there's all these little intricacies about it that are a bit frustrating. But what I will say is, it'll be good to see a couple of the boys back. We do get Reid back in the VFL this week, and I guess the much maligned Clinton Young to a lesser extent. But we will get a chance to see a few of these guys get a bit more of a runaround.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Clinton Young will destroy it. I mean, in the VFL, he's a class above.
Yeah.
So, what he does AFL wise, but he's just going to make a contribution to our VFL side this week. I'm going to try and head down to Coburg because I think there's just going to be a lot to watch.
2 p.m. I might have to see if I can get back for the second half. In terms of selection this week, no one's come out of the team. Obviously, the big concern is on Jack Frost. Do we have an update on him?
Only what I've read is he's got a corky. I think they seem to be suggesting he's going to play, but it's ducks and drakes, isn't it? I mean, Collingwood injury reports. Do we trust it?
Yeah, quite right. Well, he's been named. He's been named in the side. Dwyer, who are the ins? Dwyer, Marsh, and Alan Tuvey comes directly back into the side, which is great news because he, for me, was when he went off against Richmond. My shoulders slumped a little bit because I just thought the last time we lost Jackson Ramsey out of the side, it just changed the dynamic. That back six that was so solid for 5 or 6 weeks, and then Tuvey went out, and I saw Varco run out of the back pocket, and just started getting heart palpitations. He's back in. This is a lot more solid lineup than 2 weeks ago against Richmond now.
Yeah. Oh, well, you're right. I mean, I think almost that if Tuvey plays the Richmond match, I think we may have won it. He was that important. The other guy you mentioned, Varco. I mean, how good was he last week? I mean, he had a lot of ball, 100% by foot. Just
No, stellar, and I think this is the player that he can be. It's the old Leon Davis thing though. You always remember reasons why you love the ex-girlfriend, but there's so many reasons why she lets you down, and I get it. I get that feeling from former Geelong supporters who used to talk about Varco like that. I want to see a little bit more. I want to see a bit more consistency about his game. That's what I'm looking for. He took 10 marks on the weekend. That's incredible. But But we've got to see. And can I say, ever since Anzac Day, another halfback. Ever since Anzac Day, Paul Seaman has not looked like the player that he threatens to be. And this has been the biggest bugbear of mine with him, because he got 22 touches on the weekend, but I couldn't see his influence on the game.
Yes, yeah. Well, he was the one I thought you might have brought up, because he's definitely the one who is hot and cold, and I mean he's been injured again, so he just needs a run at it, because I mean that Anzac Day match he looked so good.
Yep.
If he can become that player most weeks,
yep.
Then it's just massive. But he hasn't, as you say, he hasn't. He has a week out, then he's got 2 weeks to rebuild back in, and we just don't get the consistency yet.
Well, look, I'm happy to give him, given he's one of Laurie Holden's favourites, I'm happy to give him a bit of a reprieve for the next couple of weeks while he makes his way, into a comfort zone. We're 2 or 3 games into an experiment with our 2 ruckmen. How is it going in your eyes, and is it something that we really should be persisting with throughout the rest of the season?
I think they're both ruckmen in a way that, like a lot of ruckmen, they're both ruckmen that would prefer, if you could take them to one side, they both say, I prefer to be the number one man and do the vast majority myself. That's how I play my best football.
Yep.
But they're both such good, young, potentially good ruckmen. I think they're coming along. I think we have to persist, because it's such a tantalising thought to have them have 2 A-grade ruckmen just rotating and becoming relatively mobile around the ground. I think Witts on the weekend looked good. I think his mobility's, he does some really mobile things for a 6'8" bloke, or 6'10" or whatever he is. So yeah, it's an ongoing experiment that we have to continue. I think there's no doubt about that.
And that's the thing, and I think that it is something that we have to continue, because purely, for a team balance perspective, if White has to do the ruck work and be the second ruckman, and we don't have another designated person to do that, another ruckman or Witts or even a Golt in the lineup, you're in a position where Cloak is going to, he'll be forced to be that stay-at-home forward, because he'll be forced into this thinking that we need a target, and we're going to lose that efficiency within the forward line. So I think we need to persist with it. The question is, who gets that majority of time in the ruck? It's not going to be an even 50-50 split. So who's the better forward and who's going to be the better ruckman? That's something that we need to work out this season. Yeah.
I've been a bit surprised that they've sort of lent to Witts so early, because I thought Grundy was doing so well early on.
I agree.
I thought I would have said to Witts, well, you're in this number 2 now. Yep. Win it back. I wouldn't have given him such an easy introduction in a way. I'd be saying to Grundy, hang on to it, and it's yours if you continue to do what you're doing.
Because Grundy's dropped from season high and career high disposal levels above 20, influencing contests with 6 or 7 tackles a game, clearances, etc., to 8 possessions on the weekend, 18 hit-outs. And that's, and I wonder if that has an effect psychologically on the player to say, you've been doing so well, but we're going to kind of make you the second banana for just for the time being. Now, I know that you need both of them this week. Todd Goldstein is a different animal when it comes to rucking than Nichols from the Gold Coast. But I think we should be backing Grundy in. He has runs on the board this year. He took that number 1 mantle. So it's certainly going to be interesting. We'll shift our focus to the North game. What have your thoughts been on North thus far this year?
Oh, I think they haven't been great this year. I don't think they've been hot and cold. They're a team that was talking top 4. I don't think they've got any real aspirations for that anymore. They put in some really bad performances, and they put some good performances in. But I think they're a team that has some genuine prospects for finals. So if you look at our record so far, we've knocked off all the bottom sides, and we've beaten Essendon out of the 4 contending final sides that we've played. So I think we have to win this week. We have to win this week to say, yes, we're part of the finals mix.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And the really frustrating thing about North Melbourne is their inconsistency, but playing them off a big loss That's always a concern to me. They're the kind of team that now will spark up for the next game. Are likely to beat us by a couple of goals, and then are likely to lose next week, no matter who the opposition is. It's just the kind of team they are. And I mean, we'll talk about it with LCynic in just a few moments. But their their unpredictability is something that punter's nightmare North Melbourne at the moment.
Yeah. I think that their trip back from Fremantle though won't help them, and I think it's an important way. I think I'm feeling relatively confident, but I think we need to win this one.
I think we need to win this one. I think we're in agreement with that. I do find myself, just for some inexplicable reason, leaning towards North Melbourne, and I certainly hope that we get the North Melbourne that came out against West Coast, as opposed to the one that can occasionally breathe fire. So we'll have to see how it goes. All right, so this week I'd like to thank LCynic for joining us from the North Melbourne board. We've got a game on this Sunday where I think both teams couldn't be coming from more contrasting points. Us winning by 70-odd points or 60-odd points. North copping a similar loss to the May Premiers, the Dockers. LCynic, I know you've recently watched the game back. Your thoughts?
I want to crawl into a small space and cry. But simultaneously laugh and cry myself to sleep.
I got to say that was probably the toughest game to watch of the weekend, because they're just, first of all, Freo are an ugly side to watch, but they really did squeeze the life out of North, didn't they?
Oh, no kidding! I saw every time we tried to get into the forward line, it was all through scrambling and not able to get a clean possession. Every time Fremantle wanted to, they pretty much willed it by the cosmic universe, cosmic forces of the universe.
They were scoring at will. Their ball users were getting a lot of it, but it's odd because I remember looking at the North side coming into this year, and you topped up with some experienced players. The younger guys were meant to be advancing nicely. It was the core of a nice midfield. And even I look at your ball winners last week, and Basnak's only had 18 touches. Cunnington's had the most of 24, but there just seems to be lacking consistency of performance.
I don't know where it's coming from. You could say part of it doesn't help that Wells and Del Santo got knocked off early.
Yeah,
and we're missing that cleanliness throughout the midfield. But there's just no excuse from different parts of the ground. The midfielders aren't kicking straight to the proper targets. When I watched the game over, I think where are they kicking to? How are they able to not get the pressure on? Even on the defensive side, I watched them try to tackle. They can't put anyone down. They're putting their hands around, but they slip. But the opposition players slip through like there was basically standing walls with arms as thin as tree branches.
Yeah, but I think it's been I just think as a whole, it's just been a frustrating season if you're a North supporter, just because there was so much expected. It was such a positive year last year. I mean, in a lot of ways, maybe you overachieved, but there was the expectation to build. Is that how you see it as well?
That I think that's the expectation, because if you're not going to go down that path, you stick with the youth and you don't try to play into the free agency market.
Yeah,
where we seem to be going sort of the Western Bulldogs route of the late 2000s, I think it was. They get their little 15 minutes of fame in the top four. I think that was the season. I don't know if it was Collingwood or the second Geelong premiership, where you thought they were going to go somewhere. They had all these players coming in, and I used to buy the age AFL lift outs. I don't know what they're doing with them anymore, but there were all these fourth place, third place, first place from a couple of the journalists. And I think we're getting into that kind of window of expectation. I keep my expectations low. Everyone knows that. If you look at the North Melbourne board, you barely see me try to lift myself up above my very miserable existence. But I try to keep that hope that at least we're not as bad as we could be, and I'm not seeing that at the moment.
Yeah, the thing is that, and you're right. The way that you guys have recruited, you've recruited as if you're challenging for a premiership, and this is why I think the impression from journos in the outside world is, you pick up a Del Santo, you pick up Higgins, Jared Waite comes into the lineup. Okay, now we've got a few older bodies to complement these guys. Brent Harvey's in his 30s, Petrie's in his 30s. We're talking time is now for North Melbourne. The question that I have is, are North in that top 4 bracket team, and on consistency of performance, I can't see that they are.
Even last year, we had our issues. At one end of a spectrum, you have the Hawthorn wins, the Sydney win away. Both Perth teams away, we beat them.
Yeah.
Eventually, at the end of the year, we beat all the teams in the top 8. It took the finals to do it, but that's what we did.
Oh.
And you wonder, what has happened between then and now, aside from the injuries, and how much do you excuse that for the younger players not picking up their game and carrying on and proving that they are the next generation to come through and support and become the headstrong support, the backbone of the team.
Yeah.
If there's a lot of debate on the board about the coach and what he has done and what he hasn't done, what he can do, what he can't do. And it's going to go on forever, and I understand that. I'm trying not to get involved in it too much anymore. But that sort of uncertainty, it's got to seep through into the team, surely. Eventually, the players are going to think, what are we doing? Why can't we get to where we want to be?
Yeah. It's that question, what's missing?
And I just think it's a little bit of commitment, and if there's always the talk of Brad Scott has his plan, he sticks to it. He doesn't try to have a fix in mid-match. He just does what he does.
Yeah.
There's an element of truth to that, and while it can have some positives somewhere in the universe, but I think the inflexibility is coming back to really bite us this time. But
right.
It's still early. It's not even halfway through the season. And given what happened in 2008, where we had that 7 or 8 run game winning streak, you don't know. Something might pick up. Ladylike might smile on us again.
Yeah.
I think that's something that you'd have to wait and see. But in the end, we still got steamrolled by Fremantle in the second last round.
Yeah.
Then Peter to a complete hold against West Coast in the final. Maybe it's going to be one of those years.
Yeah, it's always so tough to predict. I mean, I'm looking at our side at Collingwood, and we've started fairly well, all things considered, but the question mark is over who we've beaten. Bullying the lower ranked sides, whilst crumbling to a bit of pressure from Richmond and Geelong, who by all respects to them, they're not going to be world beaters this year. They're not going to be challenging for a premiership. At least doesn't look like it at this point of the year. So for us, I think one thing that we can hang our hat on is the development of our youth. We like what we see now coming through. The persistence is slowly starting to pay off with Buckley because there's more of an established game plan, a bit more risk taking, a bit more run. The young guys are developing. The question is for you guys, for North, what's the silver lining in all this inconsistency?
I think, well, we've seen the best of what our players can do, and that's very, very good.
Yeah.
Eventually, something's just got to pop up and make these players realise that they can repeat what they did last year. There's got to be some kind of mental breakthrough to bring that performance out. The game against Hawthorn, I'm guessing most of the entire world would have written us off.
Yeah.
Especially given who we had out at the time. But we pulled through in that game. We beat them. I was out having a dinner with my family and came back, or on the way to the location, we were 2 goals in front in the first quarter, and I thought, well, it's a decent start. I'll come back and I'll have a look at the results and think, well, we gave it a good crack. To find out that we won was a massive surprise to me. So I wondered, where did that come from? And since then, where has it gone?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, that's the frustrating thing, especially from a supporter base, because if you know what the team is capable of, it does start setting an expectation, at the very least, for effort, and you expect that it starts becoming performance and seeping into performance, but it's just it's just a challenge to that consistency separates the good teams from the very good teams. So let's turn our attention to this week. Ins and outs and changes. What are the North changes for the game against Collingwood?
Oh boy, that was an interesting session. An interesting announcement that I had that I caught on my phone. Jacobs and Wood have been omitted. There's been a bit of an uproar about Jacobs being omitted, considering what he managed to do against Fremantle. But people mostly agree that Wood's kind of been flimsy over the last couple of performances, so maybe he has to go back and find the form that he had in the VFL. We've got back Swallows, so Petrie doesn't have to be the captain anymore. I should point out that all of these changes, they've been put into the extended midfield, which means nothing to me. I have no idea what the team is thinking. Maybe what the coach is thinking. What I'm thinking, Swallow's always going to go straight in. He's the captain. There's no way, unless he falls down some stairs or gets injured in a bathroom like Levy Greenwood did, that he's going to drop out suddenly at the last minute.
Yeah.
McMahon suddenly has his first call-up on the season. He's a journeyman, but I don't know if we have the place for him anymore. That being said, I haven't been able to catch the VFL performances. Maybe he's been tearing it up. So I think the stats are sort of with him in that respect, but I don't know what significance those have without seeing the actual play. Majak Dor, another one who is really finding his feet now. The off-field matters aside, I think a few of our supporters have been writing him off. They've been hooked on the expectations that they got with the Western Bulldogs game where he debuted, and I think there was the Brisbane game where he also had a good run.
Yeah.
And they think he's going to be a big boy this one. He's going to really shine, and then his inexperience at the actual game itself comes through, and those expectations start to really bear down on the supporters, and then you get that whole kind of disappointment and longing for what could have been. But this year, especially in the games that they've lost, I don't know how many of those that they actually lost, but what he does, I think he does well at that level. So if he does get the call up, maybe because of what happens to Wade, Wade did finish the game, but I think he looked a bit proppy.
Yeah.
During that, so you'd think the logical will actually no Ben Brown, who's also another in, would be that. Actually, no. Ben Brown always comes in. He's that sort of automatic third tour.
Sure.
So of course he's going in, and I think when you consider who's been omitted, Swallow and Brown, they're straight in. No one's going to take them out unless an opposition player takes them out.
Yeah.
And it's up to Dor, I think, to prove that he has what it takes to maybe take Petrie's spot in the future or take Waite's spot in the future, whether that be this week or a couple of years down the track.
I think you're right. You're not going to go in with all three of Petrie, Brown, all four of Petrie, Brown, Dor, and Waite. I mean, I think that'd be a little bit too top-heavy. And as you said, Waite was carrying something a little bit later on. Collingwood's changes, or lack thereof, because there's no one out at the moment. But it'll all be subject to injury and fitness, I guess, for Jack Frost, who got subbed out last week with what looked like a corky to his hamstring. I don't know if that was confirmed, I'll get Laurie on the job to make sure that I'm not just talking out of my ass. But we could possibly see a debut for Jonathan Marsh, which is excellent. Good rebounding defender, Western Australian boy who has really been tearing it up. Reminds me a bit of a younger version of the North Melbourne version of Josh Gibson. And also the returning Alan Tuvey, which should add a bit more solidity to the back line, who I think was the main reason for why we ended up coughing up a fairly big comeback to Richmond. So a bit more solidity down back. I'm just having a look between these the two teams, and your basic for and against stats. North have conceded 772 points across the span of this season, whereas Collingwood 592. So almost a couple of 100 points better on the defensive end. Now, again, it's all depending on who you face, obviously. But I think that having Tuvey back in the side, being able to round the defense out a bit more, might make it a little bit challenging for North to get in and put a big score on the board. Who are you looking for out of your mob to do the most damage come Sunday?
Honestly, I think Thomas is always going to be thereabouts. He's sort of the guy we have to rely on when the tall guys aren't doing their jobs. And I think that happened against Essendon. Oh, was it Essendon or Geelong? He was the one who kicked the bags and got us through. Everyone else had 1 or 2 goals each. So if it's going to be anyone, it's going to be him. His way of playing notwithstanding. Other than that, I don't know if I consider our tall forwards that reliable, but maybe it's just the way they haven't quite gelled this year. Waite had his big bag against Brisbane, but that's Brisbane and Melbourne, and we have their return trip later this year, and we lost to them last year. I tipped that, but we still lost to them last year, so anything can happen at that point of the season.
Sure. Look, it's going to show it's been an interesting game, almost a must-win for both teams. I have a feeling, I have this sneaking suspicion. I never like playing North after a loss. They're the type of inconsistent team, especially a big loss. They're the type of team that tend to respond well the week after and then probably lose the week after that. So I've got this sneaking suspicion that North will get up, but this should be a good contest between two very evenly matched sides. LCynic, we're running out of time, so I want to thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
That's all right.
But mate, I hope are you going to get down to the game?
I might think about it. I don't have uni classes have sort of finished for me at this point, so I at least have the time to go down and have a late night and not worry about the morning after.
Yeah.
So it might be a good chance.
Well, it should be an absolute cracker. Thank you so much for coming on, and we'll no doubt post this on the North Melbourne board, so we can all and get all your boys in and have a bit of a listen. But I really appreciate you coming on.
No worries.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
So, GC, we've heard both sides of the story now. We certainly know what side of the fence we sit on. Final predictions and thoughts for the weekend's game and what you're looking for.
I think we will win. I think it'll be a tight game, and I think we'll kick along and win at the end. I'm looking for. Actually, I'm interested in who's going to be the sub. I'm interested to see what the selection does with DeGuy and Broomhead. I think will be the two that we're tossing at the end, and I want to see for Solo, Broomhead, DeGuy, whichever of that group is playing, Seedsman, step up and say, I'm part of this 22 and I'm staying with you guys and become consistent. That's what I'd really like.
Look, I'd be disappointed if DeGuy was dropped, only because I feel like when you're bringing young kids in, you got to give them a few weeks. And
I want him in. Yep.
Yeah, and you've got to test him up against, the North Melbourne side is a high contested ball winning side. These are the guys that not only he's going to have to play against, but be better than and learn from. So it's a learning experience. My thing that I'm looking out for most of all, you've touched on for Solo. He's the one that needs to have a good game, because it's all well and good to come out and kick 3 goals and and be a bit of a marking presence against a bottom dweller. But consistency of performance is something that he needs to start getting into his game, or he's going to find himself back on the outer. There are enough good kids waiting in the VFL that will take his spot. So, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that Jack Frost comes up for the game, but I'm also slightly excited to see potentially Jonathan Marsh debut. So,
yeah. Well, the other thing I would say there is Dugui we want in. Broomhead played well. I thought he actually started to look better again when he came on last week. So I want him in. I'd love to see Kennedy in. I want Marsh in. Scherenberg and Freeman soon to be in. I mean, it's a pretty happy position, isn't it?
Yeah,
who doesn't get a go?
And once Moore gets back from his hamstring, I mean, we've got to try him out somewhere. He'll make a good full forward instead of Jesse White. You're right. There's 30 guys for 22 spots, so we're in a good spot.
VFL watching could be good this week too.
I think VFL watching is VFL on Saturday, Sunday, North Melbourne. It's a good weekend for football and for Collingwood. Thanks again for coming on, GC.
Thank you.
And also a quick shout out to Magpie Girl. Obviously, we run as a well-oiled machine without you, so don't stress. Everything went fine. Please stay tuned for TD's Rant. It's always cracking listening, but for the meantime, this is the Mighty T signing out.
Here's my round 9 rant. I'm going to talk about the umpiring in the last 2 games because I missed last week. So it was I'm talking about the Richmond game and the Gold Coast game. Gold Coast game, there was some bad calls. Hell, even Penderbury argued with umpire knocking a free kick, and Penderbury is known to not argue. He wouldn't get to argue against 50, and that's pretty bad. But its worst was against Richmond. Sorry, that was dead set cheating. They had about 10 more free kicks than us, but the free kicks they missed us was disgusting. And the number one culprit seems to be honest is umpire number 17, Jason Schmidt, who posters on Booknext and Bigfooty have shown that he's been really anti-Collingwood his whole career, and he's a dead set bloody cheat. And that in every game, the Richmond game, we lost by 5 points. There's such a difference in umpiring, and a lot more free kicks for Rich, and us missing them, not good. 5 points of difference. That cost us. It could easily cost us the game. In a way, Campbell said, "That's 2 free kicks Cloak should have got." I guarantee Cloak would have kicked them, but that could have been once again another 2 kicks. So that's my rant about the umpires for round 9, and I'll just see you next week, hopefully.
eating Easter eggs now.